Ladies and gentlemen, Mock Draft 2.0 is officially here, and this is one you are either going to absolutely love or absolutely hate. I don't think there's an in between, and I'm really excited to see where you fall. And I want to hear from you in the comments whether you like it or you don't. I want to hear it all. If you don't like it, send the smoke through. I want to see it. But as you can see, there is a Raider player wearing 49ers uniform and colors. Yes, that is Maxx Crosby. And in trade 2.0, the big kind of piece in this is that I trade Deebo Samuel and draft picks for Maxx Crosby and draft picks. So let's get into it right here. So, starting with the trade, I have proposed, and to just make this clear, that this draft was built using the PFF mock draft simulator. So they will either accept or deny trades. They accepted this one, where I had the Raiders trading Maxx Crosby and a second round pick in this year's draft, pick number 37, for Deebo Samuel, pick 11, pick 137, and a fourth rounder in 2026. Now, this might ruffle some feathers right off the bat. Some people might not believe Deebo Samuel's worth all that much, which I don't think he necessarily is, but I think that's why you would package him with the 49ers first round pick. And I'm sure fans would not like the idea of moving the first round draft pick for multiple reasons. But to me, I'm getting a premier elite player in Maxx Crosby. So to me, it justifies. So you are able to get Maxx Crosby, and you're also able to get their second round draft pick. So even though you lose 11, you gain 37. And I really don't think that's that bad of a deal. And so this is how I have it set up. The 49ers go TJ Sanders, South Carolina, defensive tackle, in the second round at pick 37, with the pick that they get in return from the Raiders. For me, this would be a beautiful pairing to go with Bosa and Crosby and Leonard Floyd and Yuta Gross-Matos. You hear those names and you think about that on the defensive line, and you're starting to think, like, okay, you see the way the Philadelphia Eagles had success with the trenches and just throwing bodies at the Chiefs offense. I'm trying to do something very similar. And it's been something that I've been doing. Like last year, I took 2 defensive linemen with my first 2 picks in last year's mock draft. So I'm kind of back at it. We trade for Crosby. We go and get TJ Sanders. TJ Sanders was a big standout to me at the combine. He showed me that he is a 3-down defensive tackle, a guy who can rush the passer and can also be a menace in the run game. He's just physically gifted, and I really, really like him. He's one of my favorite second round targets at defensive tackle. With the 49ers original pick, I do think this one will be met with some pushback, but I have the 49ers selecting Jack Betch out of TCU. And the reason why I'm selecting him here is obviously the 49ers are moving on from Deebo, even though you still have Ayuk, who will be coming back from injury. You have Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, Jacob Cowing. I still want to inject this room with more wide receiver talent. And the reason why I chose Jack is because I have seen him too much. The first game that I covered this year was Stanford versus TCU. They also have another. TCU is a wide receiver that goes by the name of Savion Williams, who's supposed to be the prototype, right? He has the big frame, speed, all of that. Jack absolutely outperformed him in that game against Stanford, and Savion had insane drops. And it was just like one of those things where I was like, no, I don't know if I like this guy, but I really, really liked Jack. And then I was able to watch Jack at the Senior Bowl. And he was arguably one of the best players on the field. And he's not one of the best players because he has insane measurables and insane physical tools. He is just a football player. And when other football players give the highest compliment possible to another football player, it's when they call them a football player because they're just ballers. They find ways to win and they know how to do it their way. And that's one of the reasons why I like Jack. And I think I think it would be a phenomenal addition to this wide receiver room with Purdy. He's also a little bit of a different dimension, kind of a possession type guy. And I've said it before, something about him gives me Anquan Bolden vibes. I'm not saying that they're the same player. Anquan Bolden was a legend, but when you talk about how they win, kind of like Anquan. And so I also go offensive line at pick 75. So kind of the reason why I staggered it like this is just there wasn't a really quality offensive lineman available in the second round. So I pushed and I was able to get Belton in the third round. He was one of the biggest risers for me at the Senior Bowl. And you can see with some of these reps here why that is the case. That is Easy E, the Boston College edge who had 16 and a half sacks, and then Landon Jackson, who was also a highly touted prospect, just absolutely stuffing them. So he really proved to be a solid pass protector, and I'm kind of drafting him to kick him inside to potentially start at left guard while being potentially a tackle of the future. So that's kind of my thought process there. But I really do like this guy. He stood out to me big time at the Senior Bowl. Another guy that is one of my draft crushes right now is Kansas cornerback Kobe Bryant. And if you guys know and you followed my draft coverage last year, you would have known I was very vocal about Renardo Green, honestly, one of the only people who was talking about Renardo Green throughout the whole cycle. I don't know what it is. He just somehow slid under the radar. If you don't remember, they called Renardo Green arguably the biggest reach in the draft. And I was like, you guys are tripping. Renardo Green's a dog. And this is how I look at Kobe Bryant. He reminds me almost to him on tape. He is a dog. He one of my favorite attributes is his ability to be an impact in the run game. He will come flying downhill and he will punch you in the mouth. I think he's a great corner. He's very physical. Kobe Bryant right now is my guy at pick 99. So I picked Jordan Phillips in the 7th round of mock 1.0. And what I said in that mock is he is not a 7th round draft pick. Like that's where PFF had him ranked. I was like, he is not a 7th round prospect. So the reason why I took him again is I typically don't like to double dip, but I now take him at 11. So he takes a significant jump over 100 prospects up in the boards after his performance at the Shrine Bowl, and you can see just how dominant he is. He's the kind of interior defensive tackle. You pair him with TJ Sanders, and then you have Bosa, and you have Crosby, and you have Leonard Floyd, and you have Yetur Gross-Matos. Talk about building in the trenches. All of a sudden, the 49ers have a extremely promising defensive line by how I've attacked it in this draft and how we've went and got a big time player in a trade. So you can kind of see my vision. Obviously, you can interchange these players, but my vision is make the 49ers defensive line as insanely scary as possible. So that's why I'm going TJ Sanders. I'm going Jordan Phillips. I'm trading for Maxx Crosby. And then you have guys like Leonard Floyd, who's only under contract for one more year, along with Yetur Gross-Matos, who's only under contract for one more year. And I do think that the 49ers are most likely going to be moving on from Talanoa Hufanga. And you guys know I'm a big fan of Talanoa. So I think with that being said, they might go with a little bit of an archetype switch. I think that Hufanga is a phenomenal box safety. They might go with a guy who's better at patrolling the middle third and a guy who is a little bit faster in that regard. So Billy Bowman is a guy that stands out. I really like Mbuka from Texas, but I already drafted him in mock 0.10. So I kind of switched it up a little bit. You can kind of see his sideline to sideline speed right here. Number 2, just crashing downhill. and that's Burden. He was likely going to be a top 15 draft pick at wide receiver. So he's a guy that I like, a little bit smaller, but he could definitely be a role player, special team guy right off the bat. It'll be interesting to see if the 49ers address safety in free agency. We do know the 49ers need another tight end. They need a tight end 2 and a tight end 3. And Jackson Hawes is a guy I really like. He stood out to me at the Senior Bowl. And one of the reasons why I really like him is because he's a very good blocker. At Georgia Tech, he is tasked to be primarily a blocker. But as you can see in this clip right here with the one-handed snag, I do think he has untapped receiving potential. Now, he might not be the same athlete as George Kittle, but if you guys also recall, George was a huge draft crush of mine for his blocking ability. And then for me, what solidified that crush was when he went to the combine and proved to me he could be a phenomenal wide receiver on top of being an insanely good athlete. So that's what solidified it for me for George. Um, that's what I'm going to be looking for Jackson. At this current state, I'm fully in belief of his blocking ability. For me, I want to see how he runs routes. I want to see how he tests in the 40. I want to see his athletic profile and traits on display at the combine. And if he can go out there and he can show me that he could be a good route runner, you can see the feet, you can see the hips, you can see how he gets in and out of his breaks, you can get a better look at his hands. And if he shows that he's capable of doing that in these drills, then he's going to rise even higher up my board. And he really does remind me, uh, of Kittle in that sense. It's not a straight up comp just yet, but he really does remind me of Kittle. And I do think the 49ers will look to go running back as well. And so, based on this particular mock and who's available, Ollie Gordon was there. He was a Doak Walker winner in 2023 as the nation's best running back. His draft stock is seemingly plummeted, um, obviously, by me getting him here at 187. But watching him at the Senior Bowl, he is violent. He is a violent runner in between the tackles. He's huge. And he's got decent speed. He's not, don't plan on re-signing JP. He could be a successor in that regard. So Ollie Gordon, if he's available there, yeah, I would absolutely take him. And then this guy right here, Teddy Buchanan. I have been sitting on kind of alerting you guys to him because he's one of my favorite players right now in this draft. He's a guy that I was able to cover at Cal, so I saw him on the sidelines from 4 games, was able to sit in the press conferences and hear him speak. He's a Bay kid. He reminds me of Fred. Like, he really does. He might, and again, kind of similar to Kittle and Jackson Hawes, he might not have the same athletic profile that Fred had coming out, but he's got the same ability to be a solid pass cover linebacker. He is a force when it comes to putting his hat onto guys with the ball. Like, he is always around the ball and he's always making tackles. Like, I really like him. This is a 7th round draft pick, 256. I don't think he's going to be there. So just like Jordan Phillips, like I said about him, I think Teddy Buchanan has every potential to be a 3rd round draft pick. And if he's not a 3rd round draft pick, potentially a 4th round draft pick. That's where I think his sweet spot is. And if the 49ers could get him, because we don't know what the future holds with Dre Greenlaw, you would have Fred Warner and mini Fred Warner. And I would absolutely love that. Again, like I said, I was at this Miami game. I saw him against Syracuse. Um, I saw him in multiple games, and like I said, interviewed him as well. And I love the character. I love how he plays. I love his skill set. I really like this guy. So if the 49ers are going to draft a linebacker potentially in the mid rounds, keep an eye out for Teddy Buchanan. You heard it here first. I finally let you guys know on one of my one of my guys. I've been I've been waiting. I've been waiting, but I really wanted to fit him into some mocks before we got that going. And again, like I said, this was a PFF mock draft, so you can see they approved the trade. These are the picks and basically how the board set. And again, I don't think that PFF is the end all be all in regards to ranking these guys or anything, but it's nice to have to just kind of be able to organically draft guys. When I get towards the later end of this process, these drafts are probably going to stray away from these types of boards, and I'm just going to slot guys where I think they're going to go and how I think they fit for the 49ers. But again, this is it's a big mock, right? You got a big trade. Deebo gets moved. You add Crosby. There's a lot of moving parts in this. Obviously, not a lot of offensive line. And I think one of the big elements of the offensive line is that it should be addressed in free agency. Go get Drew Dahlman, free agent from the Atlanta Falcons. Plug him in at center. We got Belton in this draft who can compete at left guard. You re-sign Ben Barch. And then you maybe look at one or two additional offensive linemen in free agency. We know Jalen Moore is going to be a free agent. I don't know if he's going to return. So you look around and see how you can get some additional depth and guys who could potentially compete for a spot. But this just, to me, isn't the strongest offensive line class. So based on how the board shook out, there just wasn't the best O-line prospects available. So I'm of the mindset kind of go after it in free agency. But I do want to hear what you guys think about Mock 2.0. And again, you're either going to love it, you're going to hate it. I really don't think there's going to be a middle ground. So let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.